Welcome to Cricket 360. It's another exciting episode that we have here on this vlog that concentrates on cricket that is happening within the African continent. And this time we are in Uganda. Ginger is where we are, but we're going to talk about the ICC Men's Cricket World Cup Challenge League B that have been out between Entebbe and Kampala out here in Uganda. My name is Tawanda Eli. I welcome you to the program. And as always, I don't walk alone. Not that I'm a Liverpool fan. Nah, not at all. But I'm a Manchester United fan for football's sake. But on this episode or on this platform, we always have company. And as always, the usual suspect, Dennis Msali. Good evening, Dennis, or good afternoon.
Yeah, good evening, Eli. Happy to be. Oh, it's been a while since we got back, but I'm happy that we're doing this and in a sort of very serene place, the Heaven in Ginger.
Yeah.
Beautiful place, of course, and I think people can see. I don't know if they can see, but I don't know if they can hear. The falls are really buzzing by us, but I'm happy to be here.
I'm sure you can see the view that is behind us. Absolutely breathtaking. We're here, the Heaven out, it's called the Haven out here in Ginger. And for the first time on this platform, featuring all the way from Botswana, a batter, a commentator, an entrepreneur, we have John Mukokwe. John, welcome to Cricket 360. And
yeah. Afternoon, Eli, and afternoon, everyone. Yeah, it's been fantastic being in Uganda. My first time, lovely place, amazing people, and especially to be here in Ginger. It's been a fantastic afternoon for sure.
It's a place that has been pleasant. Right, we're going to get right into it. We're talking about Challenge League B happening out in Uganda. We had amazing teams that we had. Uganda were the hosts, as obvious. Then we had Tanzania that came through. Hong Kong, China, to be specific in terms of what they wish to be called. Singapore, Bahrain as well. Did I miss anyone? I think that's just pretty much sums up all the teams that we had in Challenge League B. So this is and Italy, yes. Why did I forget my favorite team of the tournament? Italy, right. So that pretty much sums up the teams that we had in this Challenge League. It's a pathway to the 2027 World Cup. 15 matches that are lined up for these teams that we just mentioned. I'm sure they'll come up on your screen shortly, and then you can have a closer look at those teams. And then later on, we'll give you the table of how it all happened. So as I mentioned, 15 games that are happening. The first 5 have been played out here between Entebbe and Kampala. I had the privilege of being with this gentleman on comms as well as another gentleman, Innocent Daola, who's not here. But these two, they'll do justice in breaking down what happened. First 5 done, 10 to go. The next leg of another 5 will be in Hong Kong. Then lastly, it'll be in TZ, Tanzania, as John usually calls it. I was a bit shocked that he calls it TZ. I'm like, where's the A at the end of it? But anyway, that's how he chooses to go about it. So, gentlemen, I'll dive in. Challenge League B. How do you sum it up? We will start off with how teams were ranked coming into the tournament. Did the phone book matter? Did it matter that, Uganda ranked in top above everybody else? Did those stats really matter in the whole tournament?
Yeah, I think they did in the end. But I would also say that the home conditions contributed but also the fact that the pitches were very, very good and conducive for cricket, no matter where you came from. If you like seam bowling, the pitches were good for that. If you like spin, there was some good spin. It had everything for everyone. So well done to Uganda cricket as well as all the curators from the grounds. It was just fantastic cricket. But the top 2 teams definitely performed as expected.
And for you, Jonas?
I think more or less the same. The difference was that I think Italy shook up that top 2. Coming into the tournament, Uganda and Hong Kong were the top-ranked teams, and Italy, Singapore were the lowest ranked, Tanzania, and then Bahrain. So Italy sort of shook up that status quo of the top 2 teams coming into the tournament. They might have finished on the same number of points, but I think as we shall discuss later on, you realize that maybe Italy will feel like the team that were hard done by this particular leg. They could have walked out with more than what they got. But more or less, Singapore and Tanzania, I think for them, especially Singapore, they were here on a journey, and this was sort of a start for that journey for them. Had a very, very young team, and Tanzania, 50 over still something in new format for them. So they struggled to play 50 over cricket. Whenever they had those short games because of the rain, they looked like a much better side. But in the 50 over format, they really struggled. So at the end of the day, it was the top. There was a bit of a gap between the top three and the other three teams.
Difference between the top three, and when you mentioned top three, Uganda with part of those top three, then came in Hong Kong, China. Who did you put third? Because pretty much, I'll tell you, the team that ended up being third, which was Italy, amongst everybody else, no one really gave them a chance. They don't come, their name does not speak cricket, to say for it, but their players had a lot to say about the game. They had some outstanding players. You can probably mention some of you that stood out for you from Italy.
From the Italian side, I would say the captain definitely Marcus. He played very, very well, Campapiano. And then obviously the opening batsman, Emilio Nicogai, he was just phenomenal. He was always in the top run scorers. He was so consistent as well, averaged over 100, I believe, in the tournament as well. So he was just Mr. Consistent for sure. He stood out for me. And there's some quality all-rounders as well. I would say another team that maybe underperformed for the amount of talent they have in their side, for me, would be Tanzania. And I'm sure speaking on comms about them, it would seem like they are my favorite side, but it's not particularly because of that. But I've just seen the quality that they produce in T20 cricket. So I thought it would translate easily to 50 overs, but boy, oh boy, is it a different game. And they found it tough going for sure.
Yeah, 50 over tends to be a little bit more different. Dennis, I would ask you then, you had a look at all the teams that played in the tournament. What was outstanding? What made it for Uganda, for Italy to be able to shift gears from T20 and play out 50 overs? I'll speak of Uganda largely because they are the most consistent team that scored above 250 in largely most of their games. The ones that they got to play, despite those that were cut off by the rain, to say. But what was it that was the difference in them putting up that performance to go the long run?
I think both sides had, by the way, Italy finished second, Hong Kong, China finished third. I think both teams had the contrasting styles. The Italians, a team full of experience. They never bothered with any youth. They had a lot of experience on that park, from Gareth Barger to Grant Stewart, Emilio Nicogai, a lot of experience on that side. And experience in terms of, Emilio Nicogai is only 24, but the amount of cricket he's played, and at a very high level, that's the sort of experience I'm talking about. They had a lot of experience in that team that has played at this level, first class, and at least 8 games. So they were sort of a very, very experienced unit. They really always had a plan, and in terms of how they were approaching the games, they were a very top-heavy team compared to Uganda. They scored most of their runs amongst the top 4 batters. And then after that, there was really not so much resistance. And then for Uganda, Uganda was sort of different in its own approach. They scored a lot of runs, but Uganda was scoring a lot of their runs from the middle order and the late order. So for them, it was about making sure they consolidate at the top by not losing so many wickets. Not consolidating in terms of scoring so many runs, but not losing so many wickets. So they would mostly find themselves around 20 for no loss in 10 overs. But later on, they had the firepower of the captain Riyazat Ali Shah, Dinesh Nakrani, Alpesh Ramjani to push them over the line and give them those big totals. So there were two contrasting styles between the two teams, but both teams had a very good understanding of 50 over cricket. They knew how to approach the games. They were taking their time. For Uganda, they took their time. For Italy, they were making sure they score their top 4. Any of their top 4 is getting a big total, and then the rest of the guys can really add on to that. So they were teams that really understood how to play the longer version. I think at all times, whenever they batted, they were batting out their 50 overs. They were not scoring 300 in 30 overs. They were scoring 300 in 50 overs. So both teams had different styles, but the key to that was making sure that they know how to play 50 over cricket. And both of them, you would say, their plans worked. Because for Uganda, they were repeatedly, whenever you think they are in jail, then they'll get out of jail because the other guys will put on some big totals.
Right. Then I'll come to John with this one. I'll ask him to have a look at Hong Kong, China. They sort of seem to misfire. One game, everything is working out. Anushman Rath is looking good. He's scoring runs in one. Then in another, a rush of blood. Sometimes Baba Hayat fires, gets 100. The skipper, Nicholas Khan, didn't seem to be coming to the party totally in this tournament. What do you think? What was lacking in Hong Kong, China?
I think one of the key things for them was that the openers didn't fire for them. They're also very heavily dependent on the openers. There's a lot of experience there, a lot of class as well. right-left-hand combination. And then obviously Baba Hyatt at number 4 was the key. He got 100, a magnificent 100 in a chasing effort in their opening game, I believe, against Bahrain. So he was the key as well in that middle order. So they're top heavy, and then him at number 4 is a solid link between him and the lower order. So it clicked in the first game. The openers got a bit of a start as well, but in the rest of the games, you find that they sort of didn't really find that cohesion at the top in their batting, and it just sort of let them apart, and they crumbled. And the middle order didn't find their way, and they found it quite difficult to set big scores or even chase at times. So I think that's where they really struggled quite a lot. Their bowlers were consistent enough, I think, but you find that even similar to Bahrain, even when your bowlers are consistent, but they really struggled with the batting. The spinners, they came in nicely. So it was a side that they promised a lot from their opener. Hong Kong China was the side to watch. Coming in heavily ranked, I think, as you said, number 2 in this tournament. So they were sort of the side that we were going to watch. And now it's going to be interesting going to their home country, what they're going to do as well on their home turf as well, what kind of wickets are going to be set there. So yeah, that's going to be an interesting one.
It is. Then Dennis, I'm going to ask you, is there time to recover for sides that did not come to the party to say, or that struggle? Tanzania being one of them. A lot of people, they're expecting them to come through because they're hoping that we could have, as Africa, have more teams going through to the World Cup. Yes, Uganda, they were looking good. They finished on top. Does Tanzania have a chance to come back? And also maybe also Bahrain and Singapore, will they have a chance to have 10 games to go through?
Yeah, I think, and that is something, I think I sort of anticipated the questions. I think if you look at the table, and of course people will have a look at it, is that there's not a very big gap between all the teams. Probably the bottom 3 are, let's say the last 2 are Tanzania and Singapore, who didn't score any point. They only scored out of the washed out games, but they didn't put any points because of the won games. But between Bahrain and Uganda, there's a difference of just 9 and 4. There's a difference of 5 points. And those are very easy to make up. Over 10 games, you can be able to make up those points. But there's just a difference of 2 points between the top 3 teams. There's a difference of just 2 points between the top 3 teams. So that means that if Uganda has learned anything from the last Challenge League, out of the last 10 games, out of the remaining 10 games, you will have to win at least 7 or to be safe. And of those 7, the majority of them have to be against the top 3, the top 2 teams, the top 3 teams, I mean. So if Uganda or Hong Kong or Italy are going to progress, out of the 4 games they have to play amongst themselves, you need to win at least 3, because you assume everyone else will be able to beat the other teams. So there's a lot of, I think this is going to be the interesting group compared to the one we had in Kenya, because now there are 3 teams and only 2 can be able to move on. So it's going to be a neck to neck, and one of the teams in the top 3 is actually hosting the next round. So maybe advantage to them, the same way Uganda has been able to use their first round advantage. So it's going to be very, very interesting. And for me, I don't know, it's very even hard to predict who will be able to move on out of the top 3 teams.
All right, that's Dennis.
Of course, I'd want Uganda to move. Yeah.
Everybody seems to have somebody that their favorites that they would want to move on to the next leg. But then my question to you, but I would like John to address this one. 50 over format, different from T20. You can go helter-skelter from the onset in T20, have a good 5-10 overs to start with, utilizing the power play can be your game. But 50 overs is different. You need to break it down. What's the key in breaking down 50 over cricket? How would you sum it up if you were a coach, I would say, to say, what would be a strategy for your team to say, how do we go about it? How do we get to that total of saying we utilize the 300 deliveries that are in our, disposal to get to a good total?
Yeah, I think what they often say is definitely the first turnovers. It depends as a side how you want to go and the culture of your team. And if you have the skills at the top to go helter-skelter and just sort of go after the bowling in the first 10. But you find that teams would rather go for the last 40, sort of almost give the first 10 to the bowlers and suss out conditions and see how they play and maintain sort of wickets in hand. And then try and break up the last games into the last 40 into 2 T20 portions. And then the next 20, you then look at, okay, what total are we looking at? Maybe scoring 100 and maybe losing only 1 or 2 wickets. And then from there, the last 20, you sort of can really, really maximize on those and go really, really heavy and use the experience. But another key thing is that one of the top order batsmen really has to go deep. And that's someone in the top 4 for you to succeed in 50 overs. Someone in the top 4 has to really go big. I find that Uganda found it, they played the perfect game at the end of the tournament. That's probably a perfect game where the top order fired, the bowlers came in, they did the job, the middle order got runs. It was potentially the best game where Mangela got 100 in that one for them at the top of the order. And that's how you'd want to approach it every time. But you're going to find it very difficult to succeed in 50 over cricket if someone in the top 4 doesn't score runs. Uganda also had a world-class captain at number 5, similar to what you have in Zim in terms of Raza. So he's an impact player, and he's someone who can play the long game when the team is in trouble, and he can also come in and really take the bowlers apart to all parts of the ground. So that's a rare breed. But typically that's someone in the top order to stabilize. Can be anyone in the top 4, but someone has to get an 80 or 100, and then from there on, all the team can play around that. And then, of course, I think how teams approach spin is the key as well. In limited overs cricket now, you're finding that spin is playing a bigger role. Now you need that left armour. You need 2 spinners that turn the ball both ways, into the right-handers and away from the left-handers, and then or into both batters. So that's also key. The spin area is very, very dynamic. The seam bowling can always be there and about. Only Uganda really in this series possesses a lot of firepower in that area with their 2 seamers. They have a lot of firepower in that area. But you'd find that a lot of teams can get away with your seamers just being tidy.
Yeah.
But the spinners and also the top 4 batsmen are critical.
Right. Talking about bowling and how Uganda were able to utilize their bowlers with spinners, one thing that I would love Dennis to have a look at is how they took out Cosmas Cheuta, relied on Juma Miyagi and brought in a spin attack, especially when they were playing in Entebbe. How does that come about? Does that impact a team's dynamics, individual aspects as they come into a game? Because sometimes players may feel like they're an essential part, but when the captain and coach come in with a different strategy, how do individuals handle that kind of a scenario?
And I think it's something that John has spoken about team culture. And you hope that if you have a culture where you're open with each other, I think that's what we used to do when the times I used to play. That was really very important. And I tried to explain it to some guys who thought that maybe taking out Cosmas and Kenneth was a bit of a harsh decision or not very well informed. And I tried to tell them that when I played, it was important for you guys to pick the best 11 players who can win you the game by game.
Right.
And not that this is our tournament team. Uganda made that decision because we were playing in Entebbe. Throughout the tournament, we saw that the Entebbe wicket was taking a lot more spin. And in hindsight, because they won the game, it ultimately became a good decision because Uganda won the game. So it could have been difficult to leave out Cosmas because he's been bowling well. Not that he was bowling poorly, and he was also making contributions at the back end with the bat. But if you have an open culture where you make him understand why the decision is being made, it's very easy to run with it. Because you tell him if next day we're playing in Lugogo, you're straight back into the team. Because then Lugogo favors you, and it favors the team to have you and Juma playing, not favors you. So
Right.
if you have a culture where you open with each other and people understand why particular decisions are made, it's always difficult if in the morning after warming up, the coach is reading the team and it's like, hey, Eli and John, you're out, and hey. It becomes difficult. It becomes difficult for you to keep running on with the water up for the guys because you feel that you didn't get a proper explanation as to why you're not playing because you haven't done anything wrong. So it's just about the culture of the side. And if there's open, as I think they are, everyone will understand why the decision was made because it was important in that particular game, Uganda, to try and create the matchup between Frank Nsug and Emilio Nikoge because he's left-handed. I didn't work so much, but you would feel that later on when Franco bowled, he was okay. Uganda bowled 38 overs of spin in that game. And they won that game. All the 9 wickets were picked by spinners. The other was a run out. So ultimately, you feel that that decision was a good one.
Definitely a good decision that it panned out. Right, we're going to keep it short and fun as well. What we go on to next year is I'm going to put them in the hot seat. I want them to come up with a team for the tournament so far in these 5 games that have been played per team. Not that there were a total of 5 games, but each team managed to have 5 games under their belt. Some didn't come to fruition because of rain that came through, which is also something that we'll look at. But for now, your team of the tournament that you picked out, you can choose to combine your efforts or you can choose to name your best 11. And yeah, let's go, John.
I think it'll be difficult to name a best 11, but I would say a couple that stand out for me would obviously be Emilio Nico Gay at the top of the order.
Would he be opening for yours?
Yes, he'd be opening for sure. Another opener to join him for me would be Oboya from Uganda. He didn't get the big runs, but wow, is he a class player. He plays spin and seam well, and he's just a talent for the future, someone that I just love watching play.
Right.
And then in terms of the bowlers, it will be difficult. I just like to check in. Maybe I would say Ali Deu from Bahrain. He stood out for me. And then also Cosmos would be one. The spinners, it was just such a class effort from so many of them that difficult. So it'll be tough to sort of name any in that effect.
Right.
I mean, I loved some of the Singapore spinners as well. There was some 21-year-olds. We had a 17-year-old leg spinner, Harsha.
Right.
He was fantastic. So maybe you can chip in with, I've named about two openers being an opening batsman, and then a seamer.
All right, maybe to pick it up from John, I would go with the same openers that he mentioned. I think, and he made a good point about Robinson. Never got big runs. I think his highest was 48. But for me, what stood out from how I've known him, he's played a lot of T20 cricket where he's very explosive and all. But then he had to play out of his element for him to be able to fit into this tournament. And he did a good job for the team. He was always the one not getting out. Maybe I think one game or two when he got out early. But every other time he was, making an effort. You'd really see that he's making an effort, not throwing away his wicket. He's just trying to make sure he digs in for the team. I add Riazat Ali Shah from that team. And I think the captain, for me, led from the front. You want your leader to always lead from the front. Yeah, that's how cricket is. Marcus, very good as well. Kapampiano. I think he was you always want a number 3 who walks in and he shows authority.
Yeah.
That you don't want a number 3 walks in and then it look like you might be two down very quickly. He would walk in and he was really very, very solid.
Right.
I'd mention for the spinners, I'd mention Yassin Mortaza, who was the leading wicket taker of the tournament. I think he was a go-to bowler for Nizakat Khan. And unfortunately, he could only bowl 10 overs. If it was a test match, he would bowl the whole day. He would hold up one end and then the guys operate from the other end.
True.
But when they struggled in the game against Singapore in Entebbe, he just came on and then just went through that Singapore team single-handedly. So he was really very good. Hit 13 wickets, very, very good. I think it was a tournament for the left-arm spinners because the top 3 wicket getters were all left-arm spinners. Henry Senyondo for Uganda as well, outstanding. A lot of people still question why he's always in the team, but I think in this tournament he showed his value, especially in this format where when he came on, before he came on against Italy, Uganda looked like they were going to be taken down. And then he got a wicket of Emilio Nico Gay, and then that's it. That was a sliding door moment Uganda needed, and the rest is history.
Okay. So already you have 7 players now, 3 to go.
All right, the keeper, maybe I would Haidar Ali from Bahrain, the captain. He's really a lone ranger. He's played alone the whole tournament, but I think he was very good as well.
Now on 8.
Yeah. I think I'd also add in Alpesh Ramji from Uganda. He was solid at number 7. He got a magnificent 70 odd as well in about 40-something balls. I'd throw him in there as well. And then the keeper, I'd go for Tanzania. I think he came in, he was just phenomenal. Attacking mindset as well. He bats number 4 for them. So he'd be my keeper for the side. I think he's the one that sort of stood out. They were all really, really good, but he's the one that sort of, in the batting effort, I think he's like one of the top in the game, in this series. So I think, how many do we have there now? 10?
10 now.
10 now. I'll give you the honors, yeah.
My number 1, I think we haven't. Maybe another seamer. We'll try and go either an all-round. I'll go with Grant Stewart for Italy. I think it was outstanding. Got a 60 of 25 balls. Open the bowling was very, very tight. It was difficult to put away bowling up front. So I think that would be, I think we've done just with those 11 names.
Okay, so that's the 11 that these guys picked for this first round. Maybe if we do get the chance of being part of the next leg, we'll give you up on that. But on your screen will come up the best 11 that they've picked so far from the teams that they have seen. It comes up on your screen. Captain, you said?
Riazat Ali Shah.
All right, captain of Uganda will become the captain of the side. Magnificent winning effort. He used his bowlers pretty well. He himself was an integral part. Right, we move away from cricket. We'll talk to Joe now. Your time in Uganda. how do you sum it up? What has been outstanding for you in the Pearl of Africa?
Well, I think what stood out for me was they're similar to us in terms of Ubuntu, and that's the culture of Seto, as we say back home, in terms of very humble, very warm people, very welcoming. That's what stood out for me. And also, there wasn't a big language barrier. They all speak English here so well. So wherever you went, whichever shop you went to, everywhere, there was not a language barrier. So it was easy to communicate to the people, and really, they were so expressive as well. Everywhere you went, any service point. So that was just fantastic. And then, of course, coming here, the scenery was just fantastic. Kampala being a city, I'm not much of a city guy, but in terms of at night, it just lights up. From our apartment, you could just see deep into the city. It was just amazing. It was beautiful to see. We went to the National Broadcasting Center, I think it's called NBS, and to do a sports broadcast there. And you, from the upper floors, you could sit there and just look out into the beautiful scenes. Very hilly city. It's just amazing, amazing environment to be around. And the biggest thing that stood out as well is the borders, borders. I loved that. It is my mode of transport. So to be a man, it's so different from the South. We're always in taxis and cabs. So to be on a bike every day was fantastic for me. Did you read? Oh yeah, the water as well. To get to swim in the Nile was just fantastic for me. It's something that will stay with me for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
See, I've swum in the Nile. That was fantastic.
Oh, fantastic piece. And Dennis, you being the host this tournament, what does it mean for Uganda to be part of this whole array of cricket? Not many times do we get teams coming into Africa to play, but the small amount of time that we get to host tournament, what did it mean for UCA?
No, big effort. And you mentioned it, we took a big risk hosting a tournament in what should be a rainy month. So there was a bit of struggle. I think on the day you guys arrived here, we had some heavy rains. And that's why the first game couldn't even happen in Longogo, because you needed at least 2 days for it to dry up. So we took a very big risk to do this in November, but that was the opportunity that was available. And we wanted to take a chance. I mean, this, like you mentioned, these things don't come around often. There are countries that are more privileged than we are. And for them to do something like this, it won't take them much. But for us, there's a lot of effort in trying to get support from government and all those other things. But so it was a big thing for us. And what we normally do as Uganda Cricket is try and use these opportunities to raise the profile of the game. So in this tournament, we saw some new faces on the grounds coming out to cheer for the team. Unfortunately, Uganda played so many in Entebbe, so it's a bit of a distance out of town. But people still came out, and we had more partners and sponsors coming on board. We played on a weekend where our rugby team was playing, had a game. The Uganda Cranes, the football team, had a game. And of course, cricket is the only team that won, and no offense to the others, but and everyone sort of started speaking about cricket in such a way that our cricket is the only team that has given us joy this weekend, because the other teams have lost. So we'd always try and use these tournaments to help us raise the profile of the game. We are not the most popular sports. Football and rugby, even basketball, sort of take the first positions. But we're making a case for ourselves to try and push and be as popular as possible. So these tournaments give us that opportunity. And Bahrain, Italy, they came here before all the other teams. You heard what Maka said about Uganda. They had a lovely time here. I was speaking to Jeff Lawson of Singapore, and it was like, wow, we were so amazed. On one of those off days, the Singapore team came to Ginger as well and checked out the Nile. So those are other things that stay with the countries that come here. They may struggle. Maybe Singapore didn't win any game, but for them being here and going to the Nile is something that is they won't mind so much about the result. So I think we try and sell something that's just beyond the cricket and everything else. So we made our effort. Out of the 15 games, I think 3 were no results. Only 1 was completely washed out. The other 2, there was a bit of action, and then it couldn't continue. So I think ultimately, in the end, in a very rainy month, we were lucky to have 12 games proper. I think no one will leave here feeling undone. Maybe Italy will feel like, we should have played against Bahrain, and then would have finished on 9 points, and then they didn't. But ultimately, we feel that we did a very good effort. We had new people coming. We had more volunteers working with us this year. So it was really very important for us to host the tournament, and we're happy that even this is always a reminder for us to government as well to keep supporting cricket, and because we are attracting, when teams come here, I mean, I think very easily, very easily off head, close to $500K US dollars will be left in this economy, and that's a very good thing for us as a country. So we are very, very privileged, and hope that later on, as we go down the road, we'll host a World Cup like Zimbabwe and Namibia are going to.
Pretty much true. I won't say much, but because every time I am in here in Uganda, it's always exciting. It's a marvel to be here. You can see from just behind us a magnificent scenery that is here. Evergreen it is, but they call it the Pearl of Africa. Besides it just being green, it is a beautiful place, beautiful culture. The food, magnificent. It is a spice of Africa because it has everything that you could ever need and want. All right. 360, I will cut it from here. Next time you see us, we might be in Abuja, Nigeria. That's where we're coming through, and we'll be talking about T20 cricket as we take a look at the last leg of qualifiers that will be played before going to the final qualifier that we'll be looking forward to. But from 360, my name is Tawanda Eli, Dennis Msari, John Mkokwe. It's a pleasure. Check out for some bites that will be coming through to you as we give you some of the action, especially of John swimming out in the Nile. Look out for that one. It was good. It was good. Thank you so much for joining us.
Wait.